Welcome to the Stoic Storyteller, your sanctuary for raw, unfiltered stories about the darker side of human nature. Here, we dive deep into the reality of life, the toxic relationships, the bitter betrayals, and the quiet, calculating art of absolute justice.
My husband told the court I was too unstable to raise our son. My sister swore she had seen me relapse. Then I found the payment he sent her, and learned the custody fight was hiding a much darker crime. The first sign that my husband had decided to take my son from me was the school nurse asking whether I had been drinking. "I'm sorry," I said. "What did you ask me?" The nurse lowered her voice. "Owen said you were asleep in the car this morning. His teacher smelled alcohol when you dropped him off. We need someone else to collect him." I had not dropped Owen off. Julian had. My husband left our house at 7:40 with Owen in the back seat and kissed me beside the kitchen island. He was wearing the charcoal tie I bought him for our 10th anniversary. He told me to stop worrying about the custody case he was handling because, in his words, decent parents had nothing to fear from courts. At 8:15, I took the train into the city. At 10:30, the school nurse told me I had arrived drunk. "Please keep Owen there," I said. "I'm coming now." "Mrs. Mercer, your sister is already on her way." That frightened me more than the accusation. Tessa lived 40 minutes away. She had not called me in 6 weeks. Yet she was already driving toward my son's school before anyone had told me there was a problem. I left the clients without an apology. In the elevator, I called Julian. He answered on the 4th ring with courtroom quiet behind him. "Nora, breathe." I had not said anything except his name. "Why does the school think I drove Owen?" Another pause, carefully measured. "Because you did." The elevator seemed to drop faster. "No, you took him. You don't remember." There it was, the soft blade he had used for years. Never you're lying, always you don't remember. I had a history he could sharpen. 7 years earlier, after Owen was born, I had developed postpartum depression and become dependent on sleeping pills prescribed by a doctor who renewed them too easily. I entered treatment voluntarily. I had been sober from everything except coffee for 6 years, 11 months, and 8 days. Julian knew the count, because he bought me a silver coin every anniversary. "Check the driveway camera," I said. "I already did, it was offline." "Then check your car, the garage, the toll reader." "Nora, you're escalating, because someone is lying about me." His voice warmed, which meant danger. "I am leaving court, don't go to the school until I get there." I hung up. The parking garage beneath my office smelled of wet concrete and exhaust. My car was where I had left it the night before. I opened the driver's door and saw a paper coffee cup in the holder. The lid had a lipstick mark the color Tessa wore. Under the seat, my fingers touched glass. A miniature bottle of vodka rolled into the light. It was empty. My first instinct was not to call the police. It was to hide it. That instinct told me exactly how well Julian had trained me. Innocent people report planted evidence. Terrified people erase anything their abuser can use. I photographed the bottle where it lay. Then I photographed the coffee cup, the mileage, the dashboard clock, and my own shaking hand. My phone vibrated. A message from Tessa appeared. "Don't make this harder. Owen needs stability." Below it was a photograph of my son sitting in the school office, his face pale and confused. Tessa had one hand on his shoulder. On her wrist was my mother's bracelet. The bracelet had been locked in the jewelry box beside my bed when I left for work. I understood then that the bottle was not the beginning. They had already been inside my house. By the time I reached the school, 2 police cruisers were parked at the curb, and Tessa was crying for an audience. She stood beneath the awning with Owen tucked against her coat, speaking to a uniformed officer. My sister had always known how to make concern look expensive. Camel wool coat, barely visible makeup, hair loose enough to suggest she had rushed there, though every wave was deliberate. When Owen saw me, he stepped forward. Tessa tightened her grip. "Mom," he said. I stopped 6 feet away, because the officer lifted one hand. "Mrs. Mercer, we need to ask you a few questions." "I did not drive Owen this morning," I said. Tessa made a small sound, almost a sob. "Nora, please." I looked at her. "Why were you called before me?" "Owen called me. He doesn't have a phone." "The office called." The nurse interrupted. "Mr. Mercer gave us Ms. Number last week as the emergency contact." Last week, Julian had changed the school forms without telling me. A black sedan pulled up. He emerged without an umbrella, letting the rain darken the shoulders of his suit. People trusted Julian more when he looked inconvenienced by his own nobility. He went first to Owen, not me. He crouched, checked his face, and whispered something that made our son look at the ground. Then Julian stood and addressed the officer. My wife is in recovery. We have reason to believe she may have relapsed. Reason, not proof. Men like Julian built prisons out of careful nouns. Gladly. It read 0. Tessa's expression flickered. Julian did not blink. Alcohol leaves the system quickly. There may be pills involved. I stared at him. You know there aren't. He reached for my elbow. I stepped away. That was the photograph someone took, the recovered addict recoiling from her patient husband. The police found no grounds to arrest me. The principal still refused to release Owen into my care until Child Services responded. Tessa volunteered to take him. Julian agreed before anyone asked me. He comes home with me, I said. Julian's smile disappeared. Not tonight. The officer shifted between us. Owen started crying. I want Mom. Tessa bent close to him. Your mom needs rest. The phrase struck me. It was what Julian had said throughout my breakdown, back when rest meant locked doors and decisions made without me. I knelt so Owen could see my face. I am okay. I love you. I will call you tonight. He whispered, I didn't say you drove me. Everyone heard it. Julian answered too fast. Buddy, no one said you did. Owen looked from his father to me. His fear changed shape. Tessa led him toward her car. As she opened the rear door, I saw a gray overnight bag on the seat. Owen's name was stitched across it. She had packed for him before the school called. I moved toward the bag. Julian blocked me. You planned this, I said. His face remained calm for everyone else. Only his eyes spoke to me. Yes. Then he leaned close enough that no one could hear. Go home, Nora, before you prove us right. For one bright second, I wanted to hit him. That was what he wanted too. So I smiled. Of course, I said, I'll go home. His relief lasted less than a second. He knew my obedient voice. He also knew I had stopped using it years ago. Our house had been staged like a crime scene waiting for the crime. The front door was unlocked. Julian never left it unlocked. In the hallway, one of my shoes lay on its side beside a broken picture frame. A family photograph had been removed, leaving only glass and the image of Owen's shoes at the bottom edge. In the kitchen, a rested in the sink with red residue drying around the bowl. We did not keep wine in the house. I did not touch anything. I walked through each room recording video, narrating the time and what I saw. It felt absurd until I reached the bathroom and found my old prescription bottle on the counter. The bottle should not have existed. When I completed treatment, I asked Julian to dispose of every pill because seeing the labels made me sick. He told me he had taken them to a pharmacy drop box. The label showed my name, the old dosage, and a refill date from last month. Inside were 3 white tablets. I called my recovery sponsor before fear could convince me to call my husband. Was 62, blunt, and unimpressed by respectable men. She told me to leave the house immediately and wait somewhere public. Photograph everything, she said. Then call a lawyer who is not married to you. I found the refill in my insurance portal. It had been prescribed through a telehealth account using an email address I did not recognize. The pharmacy pickup signature looked like mine if mine had been drawn by someone who hated me. You're the responsible one, she said. People believe responsible people sign things. I drove to his apartment with 2 bags, my passport, Owen's birth certificate, and the external drive containing my work files. At 4:30, a child services investigator called. At 5, Julian's attorney emailed me an emergency petition for temporary sole custody. The petition had been prepared 3 days earlier. It described this morning's incident in language already polished for court. My wife drove our minor child while impaired. My wife displayed confusion regarding basic events. My wife has resumed drug-seeking behavior. Attached were photographs of me asleep on the living room couch, screenshots of messages I had never sent, and a letter from a therapist I had never met. The photographs were real, the dates were false. The previous month I had influenza and slept for 16 hours while Julian cared for Owen. He had photographed me from 3 angles. Read the petition over my shoulder. He didn't start this today, she said. No, Julian had been collecting ordinary moments and waiting until he could rename them. At 6, Tessa posted a statement to our extended family group chat. Nora is safe but unwell. Owen is with people who love him. Please do not contact her directly because confrontation may worsen her condition. Unwell. Then my employer called. A client had received an anonymous email questioning whether I was handling confidential financial data while impaired. I was placed on paid leave pending review. In 12 hours, Julian had removed my son, my home, my credibility, and my work. He called at 8. I put him on speaker while recorded from another phone. I want to help you, he said. Then bring Owen to me. You know I can't. Because of the emergency you prepared before it happened. Silence. Then he sighed. This paranoia is exactly why we need space. I asked about the pills. What pills? I asked about the school forms. You approved them. I asked why Tessa had packed Owen's bag before the call. His voice hardened by half a degree. You are creating connections that aren't there. Behind him, I heard Owen laugh. Then I heard Tessa laugh too. They were not at her apartment. They were in my kitchen. Julian lowered his voice. Sign the treatment agreement tomorrow. 30 days inpatient, supervised visits afterward. We can keep this private. There it was, the bargain hidden inside the rescue. Disappear voluntarily or be destroyed publicly. Send it, I said. He mistook that for surrender. I'm proud of you. After he hung up, an email arrived with the agreement. The final page contained a clause transferring temporary management of Owen's inheritance trust to Julian. I did not know Owen had an inheritance trust, and Julian had just revealed what this was really about. The judge gave Julian temporary custody in 11 minutes. Emergency family court is not built for truth. It is built for risk. Julian understood that because he had spent 15 years teaching frightened clients how to frame uncertainty as danger. Tessa, by video from my living room. She said she had watched me slur my words for weeks. She said I had called at 2 in the morning asking where Owen was while he slept upstairs. She said I once begged her to buy pills because Julian monitored our accounts. Every lie contained a piece of truth. I had called at 2 in the morning, after a nightmare on the anniversary of my mother's death. I had asked where Owen was because Julian had taken him to his parents' house without telling me. I had asked Tessa to collect a prescription, antibiotics after dental surgery. She rearranged my life until care looked like evidence. Julian sat across the courtroom, head bowed. He wore grief like a uniform. When the judge asked whether he believed I was dangerous, he hesitated exactly long enough to seem reluctant. I believe Nora is ill, he said, and illness is not a moral failure. I hated him most when he sounded compassionate. The judge ordered supervised contact twice a week, substance testing, and a psychological evaluation. Julian received temporary possession of the marital home. Tessa was approved as a secondary caregiver. Then his attorney raised the inheritance trust. Arthur Mercer, Julian's father, was in hospice with pancreatic cancer. His estate plan apparently left voting shares in Mercer Residential Group to Owen through a minor's trust. Whoever held legal custody would exercise proxy control until Owen turned 18. The trust is irrelevant to immediate safety, argued. Julian's attorney spread his hands. We raise it only because Mrs. Mercer recently attempted to access corporate accounts. I almost stood, that's false, touched my arm. The judge warned me not to interrupt. A document appeared on the courtroom screen, an access log bearing my work credentials. Someone had entered Mercer Residential's audit portal 4 nights earlier. I had been home asleep beside Julian. He glanced at me, and I understood why he had insisted I keep my old work laptop on the bedroom desk. The judge temporarily barred me from all trust and company systems. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Julian represented prominent families. Public disgrace followed him like free advertising. He gave no statement. Tessa did. Our family is focused on protecting a little boy who loves his mother, she said, eyes shining. We hope Nora chooses recovery. I walked past without looking at her. At the corner, pulled me into a coffee shop and ordered black tea neither of us drank. He is overbuilt, she said. What? His case, too many pieces arrived too quickly. People fabricate one emergency. He has an ecosystem. That means he is hiding something larger than custody. I showed her the treatment agreement and the trust clause. She read it twice. You said you didn't know about the trust. Never. Then Arthur may have changed his estate recently. My phone rang from an unknown number. A weak male voice said, Nora. Arthur Mercer had never called me directly in 12 years. Arthur, don't speak. Julian checks the hospice logs. His breathing scraped against the line. He thinks I'm confused. I'm not. I moved away from. Why did you leave the company to Owen? Because Julian cannot own what he intends to bury. A nurse said something in the background. Arthur rushed the next words. There is a blue ledger. Tessa knows where. She was paid from it. My fingers tightened around the phone. Paid for what? Arthur exhaled. To become your replacement. The call ended. 30 seconds later, Julian texted me. My father is hallucinating. Do not exploit a dying man. He knew Arthur had called, and that meant someone in hospice was working for him. Arthur Mercer had frightened me from the day Julian introduced us. Years later, when I entered treatment, Arthur sent white roses without a card. Julian told me his father believed weakness should be handled privately. Now that same man was dying and asking me to find evidence against his son. Arranged a visit through Arthur's private attorney, Samuel Pike. By the time we reached St. Hospice, the front desk had instructions denying me entry. Family request, the receptionist said. I am family. She looked at the screen. Not according to the authorized list. Arthur's attorney arrived 10 minutes later, carrying a leather folder and the exhausted expression of a man who had spent a career mistaking loyalty for virtue. He took us through a service corridor. Arthur looked smaller than the machinery around him. His skin was translucent. His voice came in fragments, but his eyes were clear. "Record this," he said, placed her phone on the bedside table. Arthur told us that Mercer Residential had been falsifying occupancy and care records for 4 years. Facilities billed for staff who did not exist. Residents were transferred between corporate entities to hide neglect claims. A reserve fund intended for patient safety had been drained through consulting agreements. Julian designed the legal structure. Tessa moved some of the money. I stared at him. My sister doesn't work for Mercer. She does now under 3 names. Arthur explained that Tessa's event planning business had received payments from companies controlled by Julian. In exchange, she opened bank accounts, signed invoices, and began documenting my supposed relapse. Why, my voice broke. Why would she help him take Owen? Arthur looked away. Because Julian promised her a life she thinks you stole. The words landed with childhood accuracy. Tessa had always believed I received the better version of everything. Our mother's trust, scholarships, the stable career, the husband with the famous name, the child she had been unable to conceive. I spent years apologizing for surviving differently. Arthur coughed until a nurse entered. Her badge read CLIAVOSS. She checked his pump and watched me too closely. When she left, Arthur whispered, "Not her." "What? Don't trust that nurse." Samuel Pike shifted uncomfortably. Arthur ignored him. "I changed my will," he continued. "Owen gets controlling shares, you protect the proxy. Samuel has the signed copy." Samuel went pale. "I had the signed copy," he said. Arthur's eyes closed. Julian took it. Samuel protested, but Arthur raised one finger. "The duplicate is in the blue ledger." "Where is it?" I asked. Arthur looked at me for a long time. Inside, the only thing my son would never open, because it does not belong to him. His breathing changed. The nurse returned, this time with Julian behind her. He stopped in the doorway. For the first time since the school call, his calm failed. "Get out," he said. Arthur laughed weakly. "There he is." Julian crossed the room and unplugged his phone from the charger, apparently believing that stopped the recording. Then he turned to me. "You violated a court order by contacting a vulnerable witness. Your father contacted me. He is medicated and incompetent." Arthur opened his eyes. "I was competent when I made you. That was my first mistake." Julian's face emptied. Arthur reached for me. His fingers closed around my wrist, cold and dry. "At my funeral," he whispered. "Do not let him give the eulogy." The monitor alarm sounded, pushed us back while staff flooded the room. Julian stood perfectly still, watching his father struggle. As pulled me into the corridor, I saw Tessa at the far end. She was holding Owen's hand and wearing the blue sapphire ring Arthur had promised to leave to his dead wife's granddaughter. Tessa did not have a daughter. She looked down at the ring, then at Julian. That was when I understood what Arthur meant by replacement. My sister was not only helping Julian take my child. She expected to become his wife. Tessa moved into my house the same day Arthur died. Julian called it temporary support. The family court called it continuity of care. My neighbors called it brave. I learned through photographs. The comments praised them. "So grateful Owen has Aunt Tessa. Julian, your strength is inspiring. Family steps up when it matters." I read every comment until took my phone away. "Pain shopping," she said. "You're buying what they're selling." My supervised visit with Owen took place in a center painted in colors no child chooses. A caseworker sat behind glass while I played cards with my son. Julian had cut Owen's hair shorter. Tessa had packed snacks in labeled containers. Every detail announced that they had become organized while I had become dangerous. Owen barely spoke. When I asked if he was sleeping, he nodded. When I asked if he missed me, he looked at the camera in the corner. Then he placed a blue card face down between us and whispered, "Penguins don't fly." It was our secret phrase. When Owen was 4, I taught him that adults could ask children to keep surprises but never secrets. If he felt unsafe and could not explain, he should say something obviously wrong. "Penguins fly." He had changed one word. "Penguins don't fly" meant he wanted me to know. He remembered the code, but someone else knew it too. "Who told you to say that?" I asked lightly. His eyes filled. The caseworker leaned forward. I switched subjects, asking about school. Owen answered in careful sentences. Before the visit ended, he hugged me and pressed something into my coat pocket. In the restroom, I unfolded a strip of paper torn from a notebook. "Dad listens through the wall." Below it in smaller letters, "Aunt Tessa sleeps in your room." I photographed the note and gave the original too. That afternoon, a process server delivered amended allegations. Julian claimed I had coached Owen in a secret escape code and induced anxiety through conspiratorial language. He already knew about the penguins. Either the visit center was compromised, or Owen had been forced to tell him, requested an independent guardian for Owen. Julian opposed it. His attorney argued more professionals would amplify Nora's delusional system. Then Tessa called me from a blocked number. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. "You should sign the agreement," she said. "How much did he pay you?" A sharp inhale. "Arthur told me about the blue ledger. Arthur hated Julian. He wanted to ruin him before he died." "Are you sleeping with my husband?" Silence answered before she did. "Your marriage was over years ago." I gripped the edge of the table. "Was it over when you helped him refill pills in my name?" "You don't understand." "Then explain." Her voice changed. For one moment she sounded like the sister who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. "He said you were going to lose Owen anyway. He said if I helped, I could keep him out of foster care. He has a father. Julian isn't safe either." The sentence opened a door she immediately tried to close. "What did he do?" I asked. "Nothing, forget it." "Tessa, where is the blue ledger?" She began crying. Real crying, ugly and breathless. "I never saw a ledger. I only saw the account, Blue Meridian Holdings. He paid me from there." "For what exactly?" "To remember things differently." Then a man's voice sounded in the background. "Julian, who are you talking to?" The call ended. 5 minutes later, Tessa texted one line. "The smoke alarm in your bedroom is not a smoke alarm." The court would not let me enter my house, so sent a licensed evidence technician. The technician found a camera inside the smoke detector above my bed. It had a microphone, a wide-angle lens, and local storage connected to a concealed transmitter. There were cameras in the kitchen, hallway, bathroom doorway, and Owen's room. Some had been installed for years. Julian told the court they were part of a security system I approved. There was no contract bearing my signature. He produced one anyway. The forged signature was good, better than Tessa's usual work. Hired a document examiner. I hired a private investigator named Ezra Cole, a former state fraud analyst who wore cheap suits and treated every lie as a badly balanced equation. Ezra traced Blue Meridian Holdings to a mailbox company in Delaware. Its manager was a trust registered in Nevada. The trust's protector was Samuel Pike, Arthur's attorney. "Your dying father-in-law put the payments through his own lawyer," Ezra said. "Either he funded the operation or someone used his structure." I thought of Arthur's warning, and the way Samuel had gone pale when the duplicate will was mentioned. "Can we subpoena it?" "Eventually, but Julian will move the money first." So we gave him a reason not to. Filed a narrow motion alleging marital surveillance and financial coercion, but did not mention Blue Meridian. Julian believed the cameras were our strongest evidence. He issued a statement calling them home safety devices installed during Nora's prior crisis. He said I had repeatedly wandered at night and left doors open. The videos he submitted showed exactly that. I watched myself in grainy footage walking through my home at 3 in the morning. In one clip, I stood in the kitchen, opened a drawer, then stared toward the camera as though I sensed it. I had no memory of those nights. "Watch the clips twice. Look at the timestamps," she said. They were all Thursdays. Thursday was the night Julian made herbal tea after Owen's swim practice. I remembered the bitter taste. I remembered waking with headaches. I remembered Julian saying grief and stress could distort sleep. We had a sample from one of my old hairbrushes retrieved by the technician. Toxicology showed repeated exposure to a sedative I had not been prescribed in years. Someone had been dosing me. The pattern began 18 months earlier. That was before Arthur changed his will, before the school incident, before Tessa moved in. Julian had not built the trap for the trust. The trust had accelerated a plan already. Ezra obtained metadata from the camera's storage card. Several clips had been exported to a folder named NORA Fitness. Others went to NORA Final. The account that accessed them belonged to Tessa. I called her again, no answer. The counselor had informed Julian. That evening he canceled my next visit, claiming Owen was ill. At midnight, an encrypted email arrived from an address containing random numbers. The message had no text, only a video attachment. The video showed my bedroom from the hidden camera. Tessa entered wearing my robe. Julian followed. They kissed beside the bed where my son had once slept between us after nightmares. The clip lasted 43 seconds. At the end, Tessa looked directly at the lens. "She'll believe she filmed us herself," she said. Julian laughed. Then he answered, "By the time she sees this, no one will believe anything she says." The sender included one sentence beneath the file. "I kept more than they know." I found Tessa's price in a spreadsheet labeled Florist Deposits. Ezra recovered it from a cloud folder connected to the anonymous video. Whoever sent the clip had also sent partial login data for Blue Meridian. The account history showed 27 payments to Tessa's event company, totaling $312,000. The first payment arrived 18 months earlier. The same week, Julian started making Thursday tea. The descriptions were coded as event expenses: linens, lighting, transport, floral preservation. But the amounts matched moments from my collapse. $8,000 after the first sedated video. $15,000 after Tessa persuaded me to change therapists. $25,000 after she told Julian I had confessed to cravings. $50,000 after she became Owen's emergency contact. The final payment, 120,000, was scheduled for the day the court granted Julian permanent custody. Beside it was a note, "Transfer of care complete." I stared at the words until they stopped resembling language. My sister had monetized each step of my disappearance. Instead, I attended a supervised visit and helped Owen build a paper bridge. "A bridge only falls where it's weakest," Owen said. "Sometimes," I answered. "Sometimes it falls because someone keeps removing pieces." He looked at me. "Dad says you removed your own pieces." The caseworker shifted. I kept my face still. "Your father and I disagree about some things, but none of this is your fault." Owen slid a folded paper beam toward me. Inside he had written, "Grandpa said Blue Book and Grandma's thing." Arthur's clue returned. Inside, the only thing my son would never open, because it does not belong to him. Julian's mother had died 3 years earlier. Arthur kept her ashes in a silver urn at the Mercer estate. Julian hated cremation. He once said opening an urn was barbaric. Grandma's thing, the blue ledger, was inside's urn. The Mercer estate had become the center of funeral preparations. Julian and Tessa were staying there with Owen. Security guarded the property. I could not enter legally, but Samuel Pike could. We confronted him at his office with the Blue Meridian records. Samuel looked at the spreadsheet for a long time, then locked his door. "Arthur created Blue Meridian to document Julian's theft," he said. "He let Julian believe it was an off-book reserve. Every payment was to a parallel archive. You helped pay my sister. I followed Arthur's instructions. You funded the destruction of my life to gather evidence." His face folded. Arthur believed Julian would expose himself if given enough rope. Men with power always called women rope when they meant sacrifice. "Where is the ledger?" Samuel confirmed the urn. The physical book contained account keys, signed affidavits, and the duplicate will. Arthur had hidden it there after discovering Julian searched his office. "Then get it," I said. Samuel shook his head. "Julian moved the urn yesterday." "Where?" "The funeral home. It will be placed inside Arthur's casket before the service. He requested to be buried with ashes." Julian had followed the instruction without knowing what the urn contained. The evidence would be sealed inside the casket in 4 days. Could seek a court order, but explaining the source risked alerting Julian. Samuel could request the urn, but Julian would suspect him. Then Tessa called. Her voice was barely audible. "He knows I sent the video." A door slammed behind her. "Where are you?" "Mercer Estate. Owen is asleep. Julian took my phone, but I kept the old one." "Can you get the urn?" She laughed once without humor. "You still think I'm helping you. You sent the video." "I sent it because he changed the deal." There it was, not remorse, competition. "What deal?" Tessa whispered. "He was never going to marry me. He was going to make me Owen's guardian, then blame me for your relapse." "Get my son out." "I can't, the gates are locked." In the background, Julian called her name. She spoke quickly. "The funeral is the only time everyone will be in one room. Arthur left instructions for a family recording. Julian thinks it's a tribute. It isn't." The line went dead. Then a photograph arrived. It showed silver urn on a table, beside Arthur's open casket. Reflected in the polished metal was Owen's face. The police would not remove Owen from the Mercer estate. Julian had legal custody. The gates were private property. Tessa's blocked call did not prove immediate danger. The patrol officer who spoke to sounded apologetic, which is how institutions sound when procedure protects the wrong person. So Ezra watched the estate from a van parked half a mile away. Why would a hospice nurse visit a healthy 7-year-old? Requested an emergency welfare check. Julian told the responding officer Owen had a stomach virus and was sleeping. Identified herself as a family friend. The officer left. At midnight, Owen called me. He was whispering from beneath blankets. "Mom, Aunt Tessa says Grandpa's dead because Dad wanted him quiet." My body turned cold. "Where is your father?" "Downstairs, they're yelling." "Is the door locked?" "Yes." "Can you unlock it?" "It locks from the outside." I put the call on speaker for an Ezra. "Listen carefully," I said. "Is there another way out?" "The window, but it's high. Do not climb, stay away from it." Owen began crying silently, trying not to make sound. I wanted to tear through the phone. "Mom, Dad says you're sick because you love me too much. Your father is wrong. Love does not require anyone to be afraid." Footsteps sounded beyond his door. Owen whispered, "Penguins fly," and ended the call. This time the phrase meant danger. Called 911 and played the recording. Police returned with authority to enter. By then the bedroom door was open. Owen was downstairs eating soup. Julian said the lock had jammed, said the child was feverish and confused. The officers saw no injury, but one of them noticed the medicine bag. Inside were pediatric sedatives prescribed to a patient who did not exist. Julian's calm survived, but his schedule changed. The next morning he moved Owen to an undisclosed hotel, citing media harassment. Tessa disappeared. Her car remained at the estate. Her phone went offline. Julian said she had entered treatment after admitting she helped me fabricate accusations. A statement appeared on her social media. "I am ashamed that my sister manipulated my love for Owen. I am seeking help and will cooperate with authorities." I knew Tessa's writing. She abused exclamation marks and never used the word ashamed without quotation marks. Julian had written it. Ezra traced the old phone's last signal to a private clinic in Connecticut. The clinic specialized in executive stabilization and did not confirm patients. Its largest donor was the Mercer Foundation. Tessa had helped lock me inside a story of illness. Now Julian had put her in the same cage. I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt the old reflex to rescue her. That reflex had cost me years. Reminded me that Tessa had drugged me, lied under oath, and helped take Owen. Compassion did not erase danger. "We can save her without trusting her," she said. Samuel Pike obtained a copy of Arthur's funeral instructions. One paragraph required a digital recording to be played after the eulogy. The file was encrypted. The password clue read, "What VIVINNE refused to wear." Samuel did not know the answer. I did. At our wedding, refused to wear blue because Arthur had bought her a sapphire necklace after his first affair. She called it apology jewelry. What she refused to wear was forgiveness. The password was forgiveness. Samuel downloaded the file. Arthur appeared on screen alive, seated in his library. He said, "If Julian is giving my eulogy, then Nora has already lost the first battle. Do not interrupt him. Let him lie completely. The truth is more useful after a man commits to the shape of his lie." Then he held up a blue leather book. The ledger is not merely an account. It is a map of every person Julian owns. One of them will betray him at my funeral. The video cut to black. A second file appeared beneath it. Its title was NORA's Confession. I had never recorded a confession. The video opened with my face. On screen I said, "Sometimes I think Owen would be safer without me." My stomach turned. I remembered the conversation. Julian had brought tea and asked what frightened me most about motherhood. I told him that every good parent sometimes fears failing. He kept asking the same question until exhaustion turned language soft. The video had been cut between sentences. My real words were rearranged into a confession of suicidal thinking, resentment toward Owen, and financial obsession with Arthur's company. At the end, I appeared to say, "If Arthur dies, I control everything." I had actually said, "If Arthur dies, Julian will try to control everything." The edit was seamless to anyone who did not know my breathing. Arthur's encrypted folder included the uncut footage. He had obtained it from the surveillance archive before Julian locked him out. He also included an affidavit explaining how Julian manufactured narratives. Record vulnerable conversations, isolate phrases, then surround them with witnesses already paid to remember the desired context. "Why didn't Arthur release this before?" I asked Samuel. He looked ashamed. He was still protecting the company. That answer told me everything about powerful men's morality. Arthur allowed me to be destroyed until the destruction threatened his legacy. We could use the footage in court immediately, but the metadata alone would not prove who edited it. Wanted the source computer. Ezra believed it was in Julian's funeral office at the Mercer estate. We needed him to keep using it, so I did what frightened everyone who loved me. I pretended to relapse. Helped me build the performance because she understood the difference between using the appearance of addiction and using substances. I stopped answering calls. I let a private investigator hired by Julian photograph me entering a bar through the front door and leaving through the kitchen after drinking soda. I bought a paper bag from a liquor store containing bottled water. I sent Tessa's old number a message saying I could not do this anymore. Julian responded from her phone. Come to the funeral. Arthur wanted family there. He wanted me visible and unstable. He wanted one final public incident to secure permanent custody and control of the trust. We fed him exactly that expectation. Then I called Julian. I made my voice ragged. I will sign. He was silent long enough to enjoy it. The treatment agreement. Everything, custody, the trust. I just want one unsupervised hour with Owen before I go. That isn't possible. I began to cry. The tears were real. Please, at the funeral, let me say goodbye. He softened. Nora, this is not goodbye. This is you choosing health. The sentence nearly broke my control. Will Tessa be there? Tessa is receiving care. Because you locked her away. His voice sharpened. Your sister confessed. I want to hear it from her. You will. After the call, Ezra received a notification. Blue Meridian had transferred $120,000 to an account in Tessa's name. Transfer of care complete. Julian had triggered the final payment before permanent custody was granted. That meant he planned to use the payment as proof that Tessa, not he, had financed the conspiracy. He was preparing to sacrifice her. An hour later, the private clinic called. Tessa had signed a release naming me as emergency contact. When we reached the clinic, she was bruised beneath one eye and sedated enough to sway. She saw me and laughed. Look, she said, the unstable sisters. I did not hug her. Did Julian hit you? No, he never hits. He makes other people hold you down. She reached inside her sleeve and removed a tiny memory card. I the funeral office computer before he took my phone. Ezra inserted it into an isolated laptop. The folders contained the edited confession, surveillance videos, forged therapy notes, and a draft eulogy. At the bottom was a file labeled Incident, Funeral. It described me arriving intoxicated, threatening Julian, and attempting to open Arthur's casket. The incident had not happened yet. Julian had already written the police report. Tessa did not apologize. She asked for immunity. I can give you Julian, she said. The accounts, the cameras, the fake prescriptions, everything. You gave him me, I answered. She flinched. I thought he loved me. The sentence was so small compared with what she had done that I nearly laughed. You thought he loved you, so you drugged me. He said the dose was harmless. He said you needed to look tired for the evaluation. You lied about me driving Owen. He promised Owen would stay with family. You slept in my bed. Her face hardened. Your marriage was already dead. Then why did you need to kill me inside it? Silence. Tessa finally admitted the truth was older than Julian. She resented the way our mother trusted me with bills. She hated that teachers called me focused and called her dramatic. When I entered recovery, she became the stable sister for 1 year and loved the attention. Then I recovered, and the old hierarchy returned. Julian recognized the wound and fed it. He made your life look like something stolen from me, she whispered, and you chose to believe him because theft felt better than grief. She looked away. Tessa's memory card gave us evidence, but not enough to guarantee custody before the funeral. Julian controlled Owen's location. He controlled the public story, and he still had the original blue ledger inside's urn. Tessa said he planned to remove the urn before the burial and destroy it after the service. He had discovered the base unscrewed, though he had not opened it yet because funeral staff sealed it in a ceremonial display case. Why wait? Ezra asked. Arthur's instructions require it on stage during the family recording. Julian doesn't want anyone asking why it disappeared. The urn would be visible beside the casket during the funeral. Tessa also knew where Owen was, a suite at the hotel under his name. Julian had left him with and a security guard, contacted law enforcement with the medication report, the locked room call, and evidence of forged prescriptions. This time they obtained a warrant. Owen was removed from the hotel at 2 in the morning. He was drowsy but unharmed. His blood showed a low dose of antihistamine, not the stronger sedatives found in his bag. Was arrested for prescription fraud and child endangerment. Julian claimed he had no knowledge of the medication. The family court placed Owen in temporary foster care, rather than return him to either parent pending review. That decision shattered me. I had exposed danger, and the system responded by giving my son to strangers. Reminded me it was temporary. Reminded me that rage was not a plan. Tessa reminded no one of anything useful. At dawn, Owen called from the foster home. "Are you mad at me?" he asked. "Never. Dad said if I told about the lock, they would take me away." My throat closed. "Your father made you responsible for an adult's choices. That was wrong." "Is Aunt Tessa bad?" I looked through the clinic window at my sister, sleeping beneath a thin blanket. Children ask questions adults avoid because children expect words to mean something. "Aunt Tessa did bad things," I said. "She also helped us find you. Both are true. Do you still love her?" "Yes." "Then will you forgive her?" I answered carefully. Love is a feeling, forgiveness is a decision, trust is evidence. They are not the same thing. After the call, Tessa opened her eyes. She had heard every word. "What would count as evidence?" she asked. I handed her Julian's draft eulogy. "Tell the truth where he expects you to lie." She read the page. At the bottom, Julian had written her role in the funeral incident. Tessa restrains Nora. Tessa confirms intoxication. Tessa requests custody. My sister looked up. "He wants me on stage." "Yes." "Then that's where I'll destroy him." I believed she wanted to. I did not yet believe she would. The custody battle was never about parenting. It was about voting rights worth $900 million. Arthur's duplicate will, recovered from the copy on Tessa's memory card, placed 51% of Mercer Residential into a trust for Owen. Until Owen turned 18, the custodial parent would nominate the voting proxy, subject to approval by an independent protector. Samuel Pike was named protector, but Samuel had signed resignation papers under pressure 2 weeks before Arthur died. Julian planned to replace him with his brother, a retired judge who owed the Mercer Foundation $3 million. If Julian received permanent custody, he would control the proxy, merge Mercer Residential with a shell company, and bury evidence of the reserve fund theft. If I retained custody, I could force an independent audit. That was why he had begun weakening me 18 months earlier. Arthur's change to the will transformed a private abuse campaign into a corporate emergency. One stream led to a law firm account controlled by Julian. Another led to Samuel Pike. When confronted, Samuel admitted Arthur had paid him a retention bonus to protect the secret will. He insisted it was legal. Disagreed. "You all built secret rooms inside secret rooms," I told him. Then acted surprised when Julian learned to live there. Samuel resigned formally and agreed to testify. The independent protector named in succession was not a judge or banker. It was me. Arthur had appointed me if Samuel failed. The board held an emergency meeting 2 days before the funeral. Julian joined remotely and called my appointment invalid because I was under psychological evaluation. "Mental health treatment does not void fiduciary capacity," I said. He smiled at the screen. "No, but delusion may." I shared the camera footage, toxicology report, and blue meridian payments with the independent directors under confidentiality. The room changed as men who had ignored whispers finally saw numbers. Julian pivoted. He claimed Arthur had orchestrated everything to discredit him. He said the payments to Tessa were investigative. He said the cameras documented my safety. He said the prescriptions were filled at my request. Every explanation was plausible alone. Abuse survives by never asking anyone to hold the whole pattern at once. Then the audit team found an account opened in Owen's name. $4 million had passed through it. The signature authorizing the account belonged to me, or looked like it did. If regulators believed I participated, Julian could paint the entire exposure as a fight between guilty spouses. My professional license would be at risk. The board might remove me as protector. I studied the signature. It was not Tessa's work. The pressure, spacing, and final stroke were nearly perfect. "Who had access to your original signature files?" Ezra asked. "My firm did. Our compliance archive stored certified signatures for forensic reports." I called my managing partner, Helen Vale. She had placed me on leave after the anonymous email. She also served on a charity board with Julian. Helen answered immediately. "Nora, I'm glad you called." "Too glad." I asked whether anyone accessed my signature file. "Not that I'm aware of." "Check. The firm cannot participate in your marital dispute. $40 million moved through an account bearing my forged authorization. This is not a marital dispute." Her silence told me she knew. Ezra pulled Helen's financial disclosures. 6 months earlier, Mercer Residential awarded and Vale a consulting contract I had never seen. The contract paid twice our normal rate. My own firm had sold Julian the credibility he needed to forge me. At 5 that evening, Helen sent a resignation letter to the partnership and disappeared. Her office had been emptied. On her desk, security found a single blue envelope addressed to me. Inside was Arthur's original handwritten note. Nora, if you are reading this, Helen chose money. Do not assume I chose better. Play the full recording, even the part about me. Arthur had left one final confession, and whatever it contained, he feared I might protect him the way everyone had protected Julian. Arthur's full recording lasted 78 minutes. The first 30 exposed Julian. The next 48 exposed Arthur. He admitted that Mercer Residential's fraud began under his leadership. Years earlier, after a deadly fire at one facility, Arthur paid families confidential settlements and altered staffing records to protect expansion financing. Julian discovered the deception while working as company counsel. Instead of reporting it, he used it as leverage. Father and son built a partnership around mutual blackmail. Arthur controlled the company. Julian controlled the secrets. Then Arthur spoke about me. I knew Julian was monitoring Nora, he said on screen. I knew he used her illness to isolate her. I told myself marriage was private. The truth is uglier. Nora's vulnerability made her useful. If Julian focused on controlling his wife, he focused less on controlling me. I paused the recording. No one in the room spoke. Arthur had watched his son poison my life because my suffering distracted him. He continued. When he changed the will, he knew Julian would escalate. He created Blue Meridian not only to trace theft, but to provoke it. He authorized payments Julian could misuse, knowing the pattern might later prove intent. Tessa's first payment came from Arthur's trap. He had not ordered her to harm me. He had built the road and waited to see who drove down it. Nora, he said, you owe me nothing. If telling the truth destroys Mercer Residential, destroy it. A legacy purchased with silence is only a crime with better furniture. I wanted to hate him cleanly. Instead, I felt the complicated rage reserved for people who confess after consequences can no longer reach them. Asked whether we should still play the recording at the funeral. Everyone wanted truth shaped into a tool. I thought of Owen asking whether love and forgiveness were the same. I thought of Arthur using my life as bait, then appointing me protector as though responsibility could compensate for complicity. We play all of it, I said. That decision cost me allies immediately. Julian released a statement accusing me of planning to hijack his father's funeral with fabricated media. He petitioned for a restraining order preventing me from approaching the casket, the urn, or company equipment. The judge granted part of it. I could attend the funeral, but remain 20 feet from the stage, unless invited to speak. Julian had designed the room. He controlled the screens, the microphones, the security staff, and the order of service. Tessa was listed as a family speaker. I was not. Our plan depended on Tessa. That terrified me more than Julian. The night before the funeral, she sat across from me in his apartment. Her bruise had turned yellow. She wore no makeup. After I testify, I may go to prison, she said. Yes, you could ask the prosecutor for mercy. I could tell the truth about your cooperation. That's not the same. No, it isn't. She laughed bitterly. You finally learned not to save me. You taught me. Tessa slid Arthur's sapphire ring across the table. Julian gave me this after we first drugged your tea. He said it meant I was chosen. I did not touch it. Why keep it? Because some part of me liked winning more than I loved you. It was the first apology she gave that did not ask me to absolve her. She placed a second object beside the ring, a tiny wireless transmitter. Julian expects me to wear a microphone so he can feed me lines during the funeral. Ezra can clone the signal. That gave us access to Julian's private channel. But access cuts both ways. At midnight, Tessa vanished from his apartment. The transmitter was gone. On the pillow, she left a note. I need to make one last deal. Tessa returned to Julian, called it catastrophic, called it predictable. I called Tessa 11 times and hated myself for being surprised. At 9, she sent a voice message. Nora, I am sorry. He has Owen's trust. The prosecutors want me and you will never forgive me. I need to survive this. Her tone was flat as though reading. Behind her voice, I heard a soft electronic chirp every 7 seconds. Ezra recognized it. The funeral office's security panel made the same sound in a video from the memory card. Tessa was not at the estate. She was inside the funeral home. The message contained another clue. The first word of each sentence formed NHI. NHI meant nothing until I reversed it. IAHN. Then Owen, listening from the foster home during a call with, said, "Aunt Tessa spells things backward when Dad is watching." The last words of the 4 sentences were sorry me, this. First letters, SMTT. We were forcing meaning because fear makes codes from dust. Then Ezra isolated background audio. A man said, "North Hall after interment." North Hall. Tessa wanted us at the funeral home's North Service corridor after the burial rehearsal. The funeral was scheduled for noon. The family held a private casket closing at 10. Obtained permission for me to attend only the public service. Entering early would violate the restraining order. So Samuel Pike went instead. He wore a body camera beneath his tie. At 10:12, he found Tessa in the North Hall beside a linen cart. She handed him the wireless transmitter and a small brass key. "Julian opened the urn," she whispered. "The ledger wasn't inside." Samuel asked where it was. Arthur moved it before hospice. He hid the key in the urn. The brass key bore the number 317. Box 317. Arthur had used the same number for the safe deposit archive referenced in Blue Meridian. The ledger was at Harbor Federal Bank. Julian knew the number now. He had photographed the key before Tessa stole it back. "He's sending someone to the bank during the funeral," she said. "He thinks Nora will be watching the casket." Samuel took the key. A door opened. Julian stepped into the corridor. Tessa transformed before our eyes. She slapped Samuel and shouted, "You said you could protect me." Julian's guards seized him. The body camera tilted toward the floor. Tessa screamed that Samuel had threatened her. Julian recovered the transmitter and key. Then he looked directly into the camera hidden beneath Samuel's tie. "Nora," he said, "you always confuse finding a door with being invited through it." The feed went black. Police detained Samuel for questioning. Julian sent an agent to Harbor Federal, but Arthur had designed the box to require 2 keys. The second belonged to the independent trust protector, me. It had been inside the blue envelope Helen left at my office, taped beneath Arthur's note. We had mistaken it for part of the stationery clasp. The bank manager took us to the vault. Box 317 contained the blue ledger, Arthur's original will, recordings, and a sealed packet addressed to the United States Attorney. It also contained a birth certificate. Julian Mercer was not listed as Arthur's biological son. A man named Thomas Reed was. Arthur had adopted Julian privately after marrying. The Mercer bloodline Julian worshipped was a fiction. The trust did not require Mercer blood, but Julian believed it did. His obsession with controlling Owen had grown from a secret Arthur used to humiliate him. Inside the ledger, Arthur described years of threatening Julian with disinheritance by exposure. The patriarch had built his son from shame, then recoiled when shame became cruelty. At 11:45, federal agents arrived to secure the packet. I asked whether they would stop the funeral. The lead agent said no. "We want him speaking." Arthur's advice returned. "Let him lie completely." At 11:58, I entered the chapel. Julian stood beside his father's casket, ready to give the eulogy. Tessa stood behind him, wearing my mother's bracelet. Owen's seat beside them was empty. Julian smiled when he saw me. He believed I had lost the key race. For the last time in our marriage, I let him believe he knew what I knew. The chapel held 400 people, and one carefully manufactured version of my family. My assigned seat was in the back beside. Julian began with a story about Arthur teaching him to tie a necktie. People turned to look at me. Tessa sat on stage, pale and motionless. The silver urn rested beside Arthur's casket, empty now except for ashes and the memory of a key. Julian spoke about transparency. Federal agents listened from 3 separate rows. He spoke about sacrifice. His empty seat seemed to glow. He spoke about truth. Arthur waited inside the encrypted recording. Then Julian addressed me directly. "Nora, if you can hear me through the pain you're carrying, please know that no one here is your enemy." It was not enough to defeat me. He needed to narrate my defeat as love. A security guard moved closer. Julian continued. "Addiction isolates. It convinces us that accountability is persecution. My family will continue to support Nora from a safe distance while I protect our son." Tessa flinched at the phrase "our son." Julian invited her to speak. She approached the microphone wearing the transmitter clipped beneath her collar. Ezra, seated near the sound booth, had cloned the frequency before Samuel's device was taken. We could hear Julian's whispers through an earpiece. Slowly, he told her, "Look at Nora when you say she frightened you." Tessa unfolded a page. "My sister is the person who raised me," she began. "When our mother worked nights, Nora made dinner. When I failed school, she forged Mom's signature so I would not be punished. When I could not have children, She sat on my bathroom floor and never told anyone. Julian whispered, "Stay on script." Tessa looked at him. I spent my whole life believing her goodness was an accusation. The chapel went still. "Tessa," Julian said aloud, smiling, "take your time." She continued. 18 months ago, Julian offered me money to help prove Nora had relapsed. I accepted. I picked up pills in her name. I put alcohol in her car. I lied to her doctors, her employer, the school, child services, and this court. A woman gasped. Julian stepped toward the microphone. Tessa raised her voice. "I also slept with him, not because he loved me, because I wanted to stand inside my sister's life and call it mine." Security moved. Federal agents stood first. Julian whispered into the transmitter, "Say she threatened you, now." Ezra routed the private channel into the chapel speakers. Julian's voice boomed overhead. "Say she threatened you, cry if you can." His face changed. Tessa removed the transmitter and placed it on the lectern. "He fed me lines," she said, "just like he fed my sister pills." Julian reached for her. Agents blocked him. His attorney demanded the service stop. The funeral director looked toward Samuel's empty seat, uncertain. I stood. The guards stepped in front of me. "I am not approaching the stage," I said. "I am exercising the instruction left by the deceased." Handed the funeral director Arthur's signed order and a court-certified copy of the digital file. The director read the first paragraph, then looked at Julian. "Mr. Mercer required the recording to be played immediately after the eulogy." Julian said, "That file was manipulated." The federal agent answered, "Then you should want everyone to hear it." The lights dimmed. Arthur's face appeared on the screen. Before he spoke, Julian looked at me across 400 witnesses. For years, his power came from being the calmest person in the room. Now he was the only one standing. Arthur began, "My son will tell you this family was built on discipline. It was built on fear. I know because I taught him the architecture." Arthur did not sound repentant. He sounded precise. That made the confession more terrible. Then he described Julian's role. The shell companies, the hidden cameras, the sedatives, the forged custody evidence, the payments to Tessa. Each allegation was paired with a record from the Blue Ledger, now in federal custody. Julian shouted that the video was fake. The sound system continued. Arthur said, "Julian learned early that a frightened person can be made to sign almost anything. I taught him this by threatening to reveal that he was adopted whenever he disappointed me. I made blood into a weapon, then watched him use family the same way." The screen displayed Julian's birth certificate. A murmur passed through the chapel. Julian's face collapsed. Not because fraud had been exposed, not because his wife and child had been terrorized, but because the secret of his blood had become public. "Turn it off," he said. No one moved. Arthur continued. "Nora Mercer owes this family no protection. If she chooses truth, believe the records before you believe our name." Then came the section about Arthur's complicity. Julian found me in the back row. "You did this," he said. His voice carried without a microphone. I stood. "No, you all did." I stopped editing. He moved down the aisle. Agents closed around him, but his attorney demanded to know whether there was a warrant. The lead agent produced one. Charges were read: wire fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, obstruction, unlawful interception, and financial crimes related to federally insured facilities. Julian laughed. It was the first uncalculated sound I had heard from him. "This is her performance," he told the chapel. "Nora built this with my father. She wanted the company. She wanted Owen. Ask why the unstable accountant happens to control the trust." He pointed at me. "Ask her what she did to her own sister." Tessa stepped away from the lectern. "She told me the truth," she said. "She used you. You paid me to be used." Julian turned on her with naked contempt. "You were paid because you were cheap." The words struck harder than a slap. Tessa closed her eyes, and for a moment I thought she would collapse. Instead, she opened the folder Julian had placed on the lectern. Inside was the incident report he prepared before the funeral. She held it up. "He planned to have Nora arrested today," she said. This report was written before she arrived. The funeral director projected it. The chapel read the future Julian had intended to manufacture. Intoxication, threats, casket disturbance, assault. People who had believed him began recording him on their phones. That was the moment he lost the room. Julian understood it too. He lunged toward the silver urn. Security grabbed him before he reached it. The urn fell anyway, striking the edge of the stage. Its base cracked. Ashes spilled across the dark wood. A collective cry rose from the chapel. Julian froze above the remains of the woman whose name he used to justify everything. Tessa whispered, "You break every woman you say you love." Agents handcuffed him beside his father's casket. As they led him away, he looked at me. "Owen will hate you for this." The threat found the only place still soft. Then a child's voice sounded from the rear doorway. "No, I won't." Owen stood beside his court-appointed guardian. The guardian had brought him only to watch the private family recording from a side room, believing closure might help. He had heard everything. Owen walked toward me. No guard stopped him. He took my hand and looked at his father. "Penguins don't fly," he said. Julian stared at him, unable to turn the code into a weapon now that everyone knew it meant truth. The agents led him through the chapel doors. The room remained silent. Then Owen asked the question no recording had answered. "Can we go home?" I knelt beside him. "Not yet," I said, "but we're going somewhere safe." For the first time, safe was not a word Julian controlled. Julian's arrest did not restore my life. It detonated everyone else's. Federal agents raided Mercer residential offices before the funeral flowers wilted. Regulators suspended licenses at 6 facilities. The board removed 3 directors and placed the company under emergency oversight. Families demanded records. Employees leaked photographs of understaffed wards and charts. Arthur's confession opened doors the dead could not walk through. Accepted a plea agreement. She admitted supplying sedatives and false prescriptions through Mercer clinics. She claimed she never intended to harm Owen, only to keep him manageable during the hotel stay. Her word for a frightened child was manageable. Tessa was charged with conspiracy, perjury, identity theft, and unlawful administration of medication. She did not ask me to attend her arraignment. I went anyway and sat in the last row. When the judge asked for her plea, she said, "Guilty to what I did, not guilty to what he planned to blame on me." Her attorney closed his eyes. The family court moved more cautiously than the criminal court. Julian's arrest mattered, but judges do not reverse emergency orders solely because a parent is accused. I still underwent evaluations, testing, and supervised visits. Every professional agreed I showed no evidence of relapse or psychosis. Still, the process treated my innocence as a claim requiring repeated proof. Owen remained with a foster family for 3 weeks. I visited every day aloud. We built bridges, drew maps, and talked about fear. He asked whether his father would come home. He asked whether Grandpa was bad. He asked whether Aunt Tessa loved him when she lied. I stopped giving clean answers to complicated harm. People can love you and still choose themselves in ways that hurt you, I said. Love does not make those choices safe. At the final custody hearing, Julian appeared by video from detention. He wore a plain uniform, but his posture remained courtroom perfect. His attorney argued that I had orchestrated a public spectacle harmful to Owen. He said playing Arthur's recording at the funeral was vindictive. He said I had used Tessa's guilt, Arthur's illness, and Owen's fear to gain corporate control. Then Julian. "Nora is intelligent," he said. "She can make a pattern from anything." The old sentence returned in a new suit. Played his private funeral instructions through the transmitter. "Say she threatened you, cry if you can." Julian claimed the audio was synthetic. Ezra authenticated it. Julian claimed the cameras were consensual. The installer, Julian, ordered them secretly. Julian claimed the pills were mine. The pharmacy employee identified Tessa. Julian claimed Owen was coached. The court-appointed guardian Owen's account remained consistent before and after contact with me. Finally, the judge asked Julian one question. Why did you prepare an incident report before the funeral? For the first time, he had no story ready. He looked toward me on the screen. Because I knew my wife. The judge answered, "No, Mr. Mercer, you knew your plan." She restored my custody immediately and suspended Julian's contact pending criminal resolution. I did not cry until Owen ran into the hallway. He hit me with his whole body, arms around my waist, face pressed against my coat. "Are we done?" he asked. I wanted to say yes. Instead, I told him the truth. "We're together, the rest will take time." On the courthouse steps, reporters shouted questions about revenge. They wanted a sentence sharp enough for headlines. I thought of all the people who helped Julian because he paid them, frightened them, flattered them, or allowed them to believe harm was someone else's department. Abuse like his is never one person's secret, I said. It is a group project built by people who keep calling their piece small. That became the quote everyone repeated. The part they did not print came next. Justice has to count every piece. Tessa asked for forgiveness 6 months after the funeral. I submitted a statement with facts only. Tessa helped expose the scheme. Tessa also helped create it. Both truths deserved legal weight. She received 4 years. Before sentencing, she requested a private meeting. We sat across from each other in a courthouse room divided by a bolted table. She had cut her hair short. Without expensive color and careful waves, she looked like the girl who used to follow me to school. "I keep waiting for you to scream," she said. "You heard me scream for 18 months. You called it evidence." She nodded. "I was jealous of your pain," she said. "Even when you were sick, people cared whether you got better. When I was failing, everyone said I was dramatic." Julian made me feel like my anger proved I was finally seeing the truth. He weaponized what was already there. Yes, she did not blame him completely. That mattered. "I liked winning," she said, "even when the prize was your child." The honesty sickened me more than excuses would have. She slid a letter across the table. It was addressed to Owen. "Will you give him this?" "Not now." Her eyes filled. "Ever. When his therapist believes it serves him, not you. You sound like a judge." "I sound like his mother." She wiped her face. "Do you forgive me?" There was the question, finally stripped of strategy. I looked at my sister and felt love, grief, disgust, memory, and the old instinct to rescue her from consequences. Forgiveness is often sold as a door victims must open to prove they have healed. But some doors lead back into rooms where everyone expects the harmed person to make the harm comfortable. "I am no longer carrying the hope that you were secretly innocent," I said. "That is what I can give you." "That's not forgiveness. No, it is reality." She began to cry. I let her. After several minutes, she asked about Owen. I told her he was in therapy, back at school, and sleeping through most nights. He still checked smoke alarms. He still asked me to taste his tea first. Recovery entered our home through tiny rituals. "Does he hate me?" "He misses you." That hurt her more. The guard knocked. Tessa stood. "I did love him." "I know. I loved you too. I know that too." Love had never been the disputed fact. Safety was. Before she left, she said, "Julian thinks he'll win at trial. He tells his lawyer the jury will see you as cold." I almost smiled. He has always confused my refusal to comfort him with coldness. At Julian's trial, the prosecution used Tessa's testimony, Arthur's ledger, the surveillance archive, and financial records. His defense attacked everyone. Arthur was corrupt. Tessa was jealous, was unstable. Samuel was dishonest. I was vindictive. For once, Julian was correct about each person separately. He simply could not explain why every dishonest person had records pointing to him. The jury convicted him on 21 counts. At sentencing, he requested permission to address me. The judge asked whether I consented. I said no. That was the revenge no headline understood. Julian had spent years forcing every room to become a conversation with him. I him the final word. Money was the last thing to return, because money is the most patient accomplice. Mercer Residential entered federal receivership. Profitable facilities were transferred to nonprofit operators. Unsafe ones closed. A compensation fund was created for residents and families harmed by staffing and care records. The company name disappeared from buildings one letter at a time. Arthur's estate paid civil penalties that consumed nearly everything outside Owen's trust. The court restructured the trust so no custodial parent could control it alone. Independent fiduciaries managed the assets. Owen would inherit security, not a weapon. I supported that change. I started a smaller forensic practice with 2 former colleagues. Our first major case involved a woman whose husband had hidden marital assets while telling the court she could not understand money. I recognized the architecture. At home, Owen and I rented a narrow apartment near his school. He chose the room facing the fire escape because it had 2 exits. We installed ordinary smoke alarms together. I opened each one so he could see there were no cameras. Some nights he asked whether Julian loved him. I answered the same way each time. Your father felt something he called love, but he chose control whenever love required respect. That was his failure, not yours. Julian received 28 years in federal prison. Appeals began immediately. He sent letters through attorneys, relatives, journalists, and once through a parent at Owen's school. I kept copies for legal reasons and read none after the first. The first said I had destroyed Owen's heritage. The second said Arthur manipulated me. The third offered information about hidden accounts if I supported a reduced sentence. Even in prison, he tried to turn truth into a transaction. Tessa wrote monthly. Her letters contained no requests after I returned the first 3. She described prison classes, the women she met, and the strange relief of living where her lies no longer improved her status. She began paying restitution from wages that amounted to almost nothing. I did not write back for a year. Then Owen asked to send her a drawing. His therapist approved a supervised exchange. The drawing showed 3 bridges. One was broken, one was under repair. One ended at a gate. He labeled them trust, truth, and maybe. Tessa responded with a single sentence. I will not ask him to open the gate. That was the first evidence of change, I believe. On the anniversary of the funeral, the compensation fund issued its first payments. Families gathered outside the former Mercer headquarters. Some held photographs of parents and grandparents who had died in facilities the company understaffed. A reporter asked whether the money made anything right. No, I said. Money can acknowledge harm, it cannot reverse it. Later that day, the court released funds stolen through the account forged in my name. My professional record was formally cleared. The bank returned legal fees. Insurance reimbursed part of my lost income. Every dollar Julian used to make me look guilty came back documented as evidence of his crime. I deposited the final check into an account for Owen's therapy and education. Then I held the old silver recovery coins Julian had given me each year. For a long time, I believed they proved he had supported me. Now I understood they were receipts he expected to use later. Tokens of the devoted husband who saved his unstable wife. I kept one coin because my recovery was mine. I melted the rest. A local artist shaped the silver into a small penguin with wings folded against its body. It sits on my desk beside the first audit report from my new firm. Penguins do not fly. They survive oceans anyway. 2 years after the funeral, Owen asked to change his last name. He was 9, old enough to understand that Mercer appeared in news archives beside fraud, neglect, and his father's face. Children at school had searched him. One boy asked whether his mother really arrived drunk at a funeral. Another said Owen would probably steal old people's money too. Cruelty travels efficiently through children because adults leave it unpacked around them. I don't want Dad's name, Owen said, but I don't want Grandpa's either. You don't have to decide because you're ashamed, I told him. I'm not ashamed of me. That answer was worth every terrible room we had survived. He chose my mother's name. The court required notice to Julian. He objected from prison, arguing parental alienation. During the hearing, he appeared by video and said I was erasing him. The judge asked Owen why he wanted the change. Owen looked directly at the screen. Because a name is supposed to tell people where I belong. I belong with the person who tells me the truth. The petition was granted. Outside court, we met Tessa's attorney. She was eligible for release in 6 months. Her counselor recommended a gradual, supervised process if Owen still wanted contact. He did, but with conditions. No secrets. No gifts worth more than $20. No asking him to carry messages to me. No talking about Julian without a therapist present. Owen had learned boundaries before long division. That fact broke my heart and made me proud. The first visit happened in a family center. I watched through one-way glass. Tessa entered slowly and stopped when she saw him. She did not reach for him. Hi, Owen, she said. Hi, thank you for coming. He gave her the paper bridge labeled maybe. She began crying. He did not comfort her. He sat down and asked whether she still lied when she was scared. Tessa answered, sometimes I want to, then I tell someone I want to before I do it. It was not a perfect answer. It was an honest one. My own life became quieter too. I never, not because Julian ruined love, but because solitude stopped feeling like a verdict. One autumn evening, Owen and I returned to the old Mercer estate. The property had been sold to fund restitution. The new owners allowed us to collect 1 box from storage, family photographs cleared by the receiver. In the attic, Owen found the charcoal tie I bought Julian for our anniversary. Do you want it? He asked. No. He placed it back without ceremony. That was how the Mercer name finally left us. Not in court, not at the funeral. In an attic when we encountered one more object designed to carry memory and decided it had no authority. On the drive home, Owen asked whether exposing Julian had been revenge. Part of me wanted revenge, I said. I wanted him to feel as powerless as he made us feel. Did he? Probably, but that wasn't justice. What was? I looked at my son, at the name change papers folded in the glove box, at the small silver penguin keychain hanging from his backpack. Justice was making sure his version of us did not become the truth. At home, Owen completed a school project about family history. He wrote about my mother who worked nights. He wrote about recovery, forensic accounting, and a grandfather who confessed too late. He included Tessa under a heading called People Can Change, but you do not have to wait inside their damage. At the bottom, he drew a house with no cameras. 2 people stood outside it. Neither was locked in. When I tucked him into bed, he asked me to leave the hallway light on. I did. Some wounds do not need to be conquered to prove strength. They need room, patience, and the freedom to stop performing recovery for people who caused them. Before I slept, I opened the final letter Julian had sent. I had kept it unread for months. It contained only one line. "You will always be the woman I made." I turned the page over and wrote beneath it, "No, I am the woman you documented badly." Then I placed the letter in the evidence archive and closed the box. The story ended where his control did. Not when he lost, when I no longer needed him to understand why.
Всем привет! 17 января сегодня. Выбрался на рыбалку на жерлице. И везде поставил плотвичку, вот эту сорожку, которую я поймал на последней рыбалке. Там, кто смотрел, вот я в палатке рыбачил. Посмотрим. Сейчас время 2 часа дня. Закат где-то через 2 часа будет. Возможно, на закате будет какой-то выход щуки. Надеюсь, будет интересно. Всем приятного просмотра. Прошло полчаса, поднялся один из флагов. Вот. Так, не здесь вот. Вот. Сработка есть. Так, не знаю, вот крутится, не крутится. Пойдемте проверять. В общем, думаю, может там щука села. Немного подкручивает. Видел, как несколько раз сейчас крутануло. Ага, вот крутит. Забирает потихоньку. Вон видно, как забирает, прокручивает он. Щука там, наверное. Торопиться не буду, там плотвички такие покрупнее, пусть заглотит хорошо. Если крутит. Здесь я не застопорил жерлицу, так как немножко подальше от кустов, в более открытом месте поставил. Остановилась, возможно, заглатывает. Пока непонятно. Самое приятное — это вот сработку увидеть. Даже еще если рыбу не поймал еще, уже не буду переживать то, что зря приехал. Если сработку хотя бы увидел, уже приятно. Так, остановилась, пока не крутится. Одну камеру сейчас здесь оставлю, чтобы она стояла, смотрела на жерлицу. А сам пойду, пока схожу, этот термос принесу, чай попью, наверное. Не хочу торопиться. Больно. Вот так вот оставлю. Вот эта белая метка здесь на 10 часов сейчас расположена. Когда вернусь, посмотрим, в каком положении будет находиться. Ну, вы пока на эту камеру посмотрите, крутит, не крутит. Чаек хотел глотнуть, потому что немножко так прохладно. Где-то минус 15 градусов, наверное, сейчас. Так, у меня термос вот здесь вот в волокушах. Только я хотел, думаю, сейчас чай попью и сработка, как обычно у меня получается. Когда начинаю обедать, когда начинаю чай пить или еще что-то, срабатывает. Так, положение не изменилось, как была метка на 11 часов, так и осталось. Не крутится жерлица, стоит пока почему-то без движения. Телефон еще что-то разрядился, то ли от холода, то ли... Не могу понять, вроде бы заряд хороший был. Так, ну что, зубастый не хочет крутить? Чайку тогда пока попью. Просто иногда она очень долго заглатывает. Повторюсь, у меня плотва такая крупненькая, покрупнее. Поэтому вот время даю, чтобы постоял немного. Всем приятного чаепития, кстати. На рыбалке всегда вот так классно горячий чаек попить. И сработка произошла. Вот видите, я жерлицу поставил в кусты прям здесь. И самая жерлица, которая в более открытом месте сработала. Без 10:03 время. 14:47. О, сейчас крутануло. Сейчас прокрутило вот. Вот, опять крутит. Забирает. Вон, ускоряется. Щука там еще, значит. Щука там еще, значит. Это хорошо. Вон. Здесь есть ивняк вокруг. Ну, завести может, в принципе, но тоже дело случая. По-разному бывает. Долго-долго стоял на месте, когда, как видели, я пока чай попил там, пока поговорил там с вами. Так, ну что, уже через что-то проходит, как будто. Ох, забирает прямо из рук, прям тянет. Давит рыба. Вот она есть. Хорошая щука, смотрите. Отлично. Удалось поймать. И такая неплохая трофейная. Ну, для этих мест. Хорошая щука, ребята. Не зря подождал, потому что очень она прям слабо так держалась. Прям, смотрите, крючок где. Крючок вот буквально вот здесь, вот видите, двойник. На языке, можно сказать. Отлично. Не зря приехал. Отличная щука. У меня весы есть. Сейчас взвесим, посмотрим, сколько весит. Так. Сейчас прихват достану. У меня прихват есть такой специально для нее. Такая прям мощная, прям из рук вырывается. Вот она есть, ребята. Трофей взят. Но я думаю, где-то около 2 килограмм. Сейчас ее освобожу и пойдем взвесим ее на весах. Отлично вообще. Не знаю, сидел, ну думал, будет, не будет сработка, будет, не будет сработка. Я же на рыбалке уже здесь с 4 числа не был. С 4, последний раз 4 января приезжал. В тот день поклевок вообще не было. Так, вот смотрите. Крючок, да, я вам хотел показать. Так, вот здесь он прям на языке я вам показывал. Сейчас его вытащим. Так. Пытаюсь сохранить живца еще. Вроде нормальный. Да, отличная щука. Она сейчас еще икряная вся. Полная икры должна быть. Ну вот, освободил от крючка. Сейчас переставлю. Все, переставил. Если повезет, может еще раз в этом месте щука попадется. Бывает то, что одна лунка эффективно работает. Так, ну что, пойдемте посмотрим, сколько эта щука весит. Интересно посмотреть, там волокуши с весами там дальше. Так, вот весы. Весы такие у меня простенькие. Советского Союза еще. Так. Ну да, как я и сказал. Вот. Смотрите. Почти 2 килограмма. Ну, там прихват, может, грамм 100 весит. Кило 900 получается. Отличный такой трофей. Хорошая щука. В том году и позапрошлом году в этих местах в это время уже клев такой очень-очень слабый был. И бывало, я приезжал даже в том году, несколько дней приезжал, ни одной сработки даже не удавалось увидеть в течение нескольких дней. Посмотрим, сейчас еще где-то час есть до заката, вот солнце. Буквально через час, через полчаса уже до горизонта дойдет. Сейчас вот в это время, может, еще удастся, если повезет, какую-то сработку увидеть. Посидим, подождем, в общем. Пока чайку попью. С телефоном разберусь, что-то он разряжается. Вот солнце пересекает горизонт. После поимки щуки прошло примерно где-то около полчаса. Сработок не было пока. Жильцы стоят, колокольчики не звенят. Бывает то, что колокольчики иногда звенят, когда щука ходит, там живца трогает, там пугает. Живец дергается, и колокольчики у меня... Кто смотрит канал, знает то, что колокольчики на жальцах стоят. Так, ну что, жду еще немного. Сижу здесь, чаек пью, наслаждаюсь деньком. Морозно, прохладно сегодня, но так комфортно из-за того, что сильно ветра нету, так комфортно сидеть, нормально можно посидеть. Сейчас вот немного в сумерках еще, ну, до наступления сумерек попробую подождать. Ворон летает, что-то ищет. Какую-то добычу, наверное, высматривает. Иногда на льду я ошметки перьев встречаю, как будто какой-то хищник какую-то небольшую птицу завалил. Оп. Сейчас колокольчик услышал. Отработка вот. Пока ворона там снимал птицу, вот сработала жерлица. Так, отсюда плохо видно, крутит, нет. Там застопорена она в кустах стоит. Пойдемте проверять. Я в этом месте уже один раз щуку ловил. Как-то ставил вот в это место. Здесь такой закуток. Вот. Возле этого, возле берега. Пока не видно, там что-то есть, нет, пока непонятно. Но здесь застопорена она могла уже докрутить до стопора. Сейчас проверим. Докрутила до стопора. Ага. Нет, сорвалась. Докрутила до стопора и бросила. Он же весь в траве, видите? Так, сейчас переставлю, она, возможно, вернется. Пусть постоит пока. Надо будет подождать. Бывает то, что возвращается. Здесь я буквально оставил, чтобы леску она могла 2-3 метра смотать, чтобы в кусты не завела куда-нибудь. Но при таком способе она, видите, она заглотить не всегда может так, как надо. Так. Так, давай тебе еще один шанс. Спасибо за сработку, но если попадешь, еще лучше будет. Немножко затенить надо, чтобы щука не шугалась света. Ну что, отлично. Вторую сработку увидел. Пускай хоть не удалось рыбу взять. Уже можно не жаловаться. Уже одна рыба поймана. Хороший вес, кило 900 взято. Как и сказал, стопорю в этих местах по-другому никак, потому что рыба затащит вот в эти кусты, видите. Потом уже не вытащишь, поэтому здесь есть только 2-3 метра оставлять, только так рыбачить. Иначе будет обрыв, иначе рыба запутается куда-нибудь. Так, ну вот, видите, такой красивый сегодня закат, ясная погода. Еще немного жду, до темна еще есть немного времени. Но выход есть такой вот, видите. Добрался до дома, в итоге досидел допоздна, до темна, сработок больше не было. И вот такая вот, в общем, получилась рыбалка. Удалось вот эту щуку затащить на кило 900, которую вы видели. Одна холостая сработка была, но не реализованная. Я считаю, что всегда повезло. Можно было и без рыбы домой приехать. Надеюсь, вам было интересно. Всем большое спасибо, как обычно, за просмотр. Всем пока. Увидимся на следующей рыбалке, в следующем видео. Банди, не кусайся. Ну, что ты кусаешься? Что ты мою руку постоянно кусаешь? Киселя закусала тоже, он. Кисель не подходит. Ну, Банди, ну хватит. Ты сейчас докусаешь, сейчас кисель поцарапает тебя. Кисель. Кисель постарше, ты, кисель, должен нянчиться, да, с Банди? А с Банди не все так просто, она кусаться любит.